Welcome to The Real Build. I'm your host, Jamila. I have my co-host, Andre, with me here today. Say hello to the people.
Hello, people.
Well, Andre has only gifted us with half his time. He has a meeting later today he's got to run off to, but he couldn't miss the topic
it's too
today.
Important. It's too important.
We have a special guest, Ben, here with us. Ben has been on the show before. He's a fantastic energy advisor that I work with on projects, and we've talked about Energy Co, but that's not what we're talking about today. Ben also is a carpenter, and he is fired up about tariffs. Let's go, Ben.
Yeah, I am pretty fired up today. I think everybody in the country is probably pretty fired up today. My heart has not stopped beating the last couple of days, which is, I guess, a good thing, but it's been beating very, very rapidly. I am anxious. I've been feeling incredibly anxious the last few days, just like I think everybody across the country has been, and for the last month. So we've started a project to try and help deal with that.
Yeah, so, I mean, we're recap. We're talking about tariffs that Mr. Next Door Neighbor is putting on our products going into Canada, and also the retaliation of tariffs that we're doing, and the uncertainty on what that means basically in business in general in Canada, and how people are going to earn their money. But it's really deeply affecting the construction industry in a big way.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, our supply chain is so interconnected for everything that goes back and forth across the border. We hear a lot of talk about it when we're hearing about vehicles and metals and, the steel back and forth, because originally they were just going to put some tariffs on metal. Mm-hmm. Now, I haven't seen what the final everything is, but it's basically everything going back and forth. So essentially what Mr. Trump has decided to do is put a massive new tax on the American citizens, on their largest trading partner, which is Canada, at least most of the last few years. And it's intended to hurt our businesses. And that is going to be the effect. Our Canadian businesses, our manufacturers and suppliers are going to be hurt by this, and pretty badly. So not only that, it's going to be negatively affecting American consumers and raising prices across the board down there. Mm-hmm. Inflation's going to go up. You're already seeing the stock market tank and so people's
12%. 12% the last 2 days.
That's just wild. It's wild. I mean, it's over. The last number I saw today was over $3 trillion wiped off the holdings on the American stock markets just in the last couple of days. That's an insane amount of wealth that has been lost out of people's retirement funds, and it's just crazy to me. But what we have to do is protect our economy and protect our businesses in Canada here as much as we can, and we only have so much power to do that. But the number one thing that we can do is start keeping more of our dollars onshore, mm-hmm. and from going across the border to the States. Buying
Canadian, making it in Canada, producing it in Canada, and buying from your Canadian neighbor and entrepreneur.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like we didn't used to think about, at least I didn't, I shouldn't speak for everybody, but I didn't used to think about things as made in America being a negative thing. Mm-hmm. I thought less transportation costs, less environmental impact than it coming from overseas. I always viewed the Americans as cousins or brothers, or even if they're a little bit goofy, Mm-hmm. But I always saw Made in America as generally a positive thing, or at least the next best thing to Made in Canada. Mm-hmm. My opinions have changed dramatically in the last few months.
Mm-hmm.
I have a kind of introductory question, and maybe an opinion question too. Do you feel like the American side of the tariffs, so the tariffs that they're placing on their imports, are more detrimental, or is it the retaliatory tariffs that we're doing that could be more detrimental?
Great question.
To the Canadian economy?
To us.
Honestly, I am not an economist. I'm a carpenter, mm-hmm. right? I'm not qualified to evaluate that. I just know that there's going to be a lot of pain no matter what.
Sure.
The retaliatory tariffs, in my mind, are necessary because money is the only mechanism that this guy understands. So we have to make it painful for the American economy. And that's really unfortunate because it leads to pain for American families. And a lot of them didn't vote for this. Even a lot of them who did vote for this
weren't expecting this.
Despite him saying day one, right? Like that's just not how it came down. So Yeah, no, I'm not qualified to speak on that. I just know that it's going to be bad, and I just really feel for everybody across the country right now.
Both countries.
Both countries. Well, I don't feel for everybody across both countries, but I feel it for everybody across ours.
Yeah. Well, and the one thing you said is that before you never really looked at U.S. made products as anything but really Canadian made products. And a lot of people in Canada don't, I guess we look at the U.S. as if we are them as well in a certain way. Like, look at sports, right? Everyone loves the U.S. football. But do they watch the CFL? No, they're not supporting the Canadian League. They're supporting the American League.
Yeah, unless you're in Saskatchewan.
Yes.
Unless you're a Rough Rider, is that right? Yeah, unless you're a Rough Rider, I agree. So, but that's just a small example of how as Canadians we need to start thinking differently. A lot of people watch Big Brother USA, but they're like, oh, Big Brother Canada sucks. I watch the Big Brother. But it's exactly the same show.
We've been so intertwined, right? Like,
Yeah.
for the last century, we've been so intertwined in trade and cultural norms and
Yes.
everything.
Yeah.
Everything, yeah. Our cultures are very, very intertwined, and I would say our Canadian culture is a little too, in my mind, a little too dependent on American media.
I agree.
And I think that's what I'm getting at. Is
Yeah. But I never really saw it as a bad thing. You know, like as a Canadian, you tend to experience those moments in American television where there's a little Canadian element or a Canadian joke.
Yes.
And you kind of like it. Like you face that with pride, right? Like it's always fun. We're really good at making fun of ourselves in this country. But things are really changing right now, and my opinion of everything coming out of the States has dramatically shifted. But more than that, I'm just laser focused now on what we can do to protect our country and our economy. That's the number one thing I'm trying to do, and that's why I'm here today to talk about Build Up Canada, which is this new project that I've launched.
So Ben reached out to me a couple of weeks ago and said we need construction companies to be focused on buying Canadian-made products and Canadian suppliers. And I'm like, Ben, this is a great idea, but I feel like you're like biting the whole cake. Like, this is huge. And then Ben called me 2 weeks later and said, I created the platform. We're going to do this. And if there's anyone that can pull it off, it's this guy, I'm telling you. So I'm like, well, you got to come on the show. We got to talk about it. So, Case, what's the name of the website again?
So the website is buildingcollective.ca.
Okay.
And the name of the project is Build Up Canada, so there's the two arms to it. Number one, there's the YouTube page, which is at Build Up Canada, and then there's buildingcollective.ca. I started talking about this and spouting off on social media before getting my ducks in a row. So the day that I said something about this, somebody went and bought buildupcanada.ca. So that's gone, and it's somebody's just
better not be an American.
I don't know.
Just adding insult to injury if it is.
It could be a coincidence, but it seems pretty suspect. Anyway, that doesn't matter. I already had the domain buildingcollective.ca that I was intending for another project, but we're using it here. So just to give you a rundown of what I'm planning for Build Up Canada, we're looking to have a website, directory, map, everything based around all of the different elements of the building industry and all of the subsections of the building industry where we can find Canadian suppliers and manufacturers. So if you, right from foundation to a fully furnished and staged house, that's the part of the Canadian economy that we're looking at, because right now is a fantastic opportunity for Canadian companies. You know, when builders get intertwined with something, builders do not like change. They just builders and contractors alike do not like change.
Definitely.
They just go ahead with what they've already been doing, right? So if you have a supply chain already established, you're going to be very hard pressed to actually change that. Now, with these tariffs looming and all of the Canadian pride, everybody wants to support this Buy Canadian movement. Well, the most capital output you would have as an average Canadian goes into either building or renovating your home. That's the single largest expenditure most Canadians are going to make in their lives. So why don't we have a portal that will connect them to all of these Canadian manufacturers that can supply the products that they need to build their house? That's essentially what I want to do. The YouTube side of it is just going to be a page for me to make videos with manufacturers and see some of these amazing products that are being made throughout the country.
This just is a huge task to take on. I'm so happy that you've taken this ball and run with it. We're going to take a quick break, but we're going to talk more about what you have researched so far, the businesses that we can, things we can start doing right now in this industry to buy Canadian. Stay tuned. Welcome back to The Real Build. I'm your host, Jamila, and we still have my co-host here with me, Andre, for the next segment. Thank you.
I'm still here. One more.
You're gonna have to do double duty next time for leaving us for
I think so.
half a show.
I think
Anyway,
so.
Thanks for sticking around. And we are talking to Ben, who has really fired up about the tariffs, and I know we all are, but I love that he is coming to the table with a solution. And we all know buying Canadian is what we need to do and how we need to keep our dollars in Canada and supporting Canadian businesses and Canadian families. But Ben is taking this to a whole nother level. One of the industries getting hit hard with this area is construction. And that's because a lot of our products come from USA. And it's hard to shift and change these businesses with where they're buying until they're actually shown where else they can buy it. And Ben's trying to create he is creating the solution and the portal to make decisions in this area to make sure you're buying Canadian. And also, it could be hard, like it could be a Canadian-owned business that is bringing all supplies out of America and the money's going into America. So there's different ways to tell, how to judge a business and make sure your Canadian dollars are staying in this country. But Ben, let's wind it back to the beginning. Like you just woke up and this is what how did this come to fruition in your brain?
I've spent a lot of the last several months pretty angry. I didn't see this coming for our country. I didn't see this coming for the world. I completely support the Americans' right to elect whoever they want, but I did not see our closest ally coming for us. I didn't see the threats to our sovereignty coming, and I did not see the threats of economic ruin for Canada coming right from the highest office in the world. So that's been causing me to lose a lot of sleep, and the only way that I know how to deal with that is to go to action. If I can't sleep, then I just need to be working until 10 o'clock at night. And if I'm doing something that makes me feel like I'm doing something for my fellow Canadians or something good for the world, then that's what's going to let me sleep easy at night.
So, buying local, and it's hard to explain how hard that. It's easy to make the choice to change your groceries. You can Google your Canadian-owned supermarket, your Canadian products.
Well, I mean, supermarkets are just labeling it now in the stores too, which I think is great.
They are. But the construction industry, it's a little harder. It's a little harder to just figure all of this out. And you were like, I'm going to help people figure this out, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the thing that always bothered me was I would see person after person leaving Home Depot with a cart full of lumber. And I know that lumber is coming from Canadian forests. So somebody is going to an American corporation and giving them their dollars for the right to purchase Canadian lumber. And that always kind of bothered me. Also, everything's always so twisted at Home Depot because they keep it inside. It's just terrible. But I don't really have.
Home Depot, don't sue us.
I mean, I already said that it was Canadian lumber. It's still we're the ones growing the crooked trees, I guess, right?
Yeah,
Sure, yeah.
But no, there's a really stark example here in Kelowna. I always would shop either at. I prefer to shop at Home Hardware, but I would shop at Rona a lot too. I go to Home Depot, all of that. But the thing that got me was knowing that here in Kelowna, the Rona is a corporate-owned store. So that means it's owned by a private equity firm out of the United States. And their profit margins vary by product to product, but generally you can expect 20 to 30%. So 20 to 30% is the number that I understand is being siphoned off every purchase and going to an American private equity firm directly across the road. Like you could throw a ball and hit it is a 100% Canadian owned business that is franchised and the owners of that business are local to the community where it is.
And he's talking about Home Hardware.
I'm talking about Home Hardware, and they're directly next to each other.
Yeah, especially here in Kelowna, yeah.
Yeah.
I have been purchasing my lumber supplies for my construction company through Home Hardware since my construction company has started 5 years ago. They give the best customer service.
They do.
They're extremely reliable company to work with. And
What a nice plug.
I really, they're one of my favorite suppliers. And they are a locally owned business. I know Paul, the owner there. He's fantastic. He owns a few Home Hardwares. They actually just opened up a new truss plant in the city too. So if you want to keep working with Canadian businesses, they're doing that. But it's just, there's something about independently owned business, the way you get serviced, right?
Absolutely.
Than a corporation.
And something I do want to point out as well is not all Ronas are corporately owned. A lot of the smaller community ones are still independent franchises. I don't want to discourage anybody from shopping at Canadian-owned independent franchises,
Yes.
anything like that.
Yeah.
It's more just how clear it is, the divide right there. The
Yeah.
corporate-owned big box store right next to the community-owned store. So I always shopped at Home Hardware when I was in Alberta, and still when I moved to Kelowna here, because their lumberyard is really good. The prices are really good. They don't have the selection that these big box American stores do, but that's just part of it. You know, if we can move as many of our dollars as we can to staying on shore, it's not about being perfect. I'm not asking anybody to be perfect, but I want to create this resource so that more of our dollars can be kept within our country. And that's the important thing. It's going to be incredibly important for us to keep that going, because our economy is about to get hit very, very hard. Nobody should be kidding themselves about the type of pain that is going to be felt in the next few months and maybe few years. Like we're in for it, but I know that Canadians are strong and want to stand together. So this Build Up Canada project and buildingcollective.ca is my way of trying to contribute to that, because if we can change those consumer habits, like I said, for builders, for contractors, get people used to using Canadian companies, Canadian manufactured, keep those dollars within our borders. That's the most important thing. And get those relationships tied in so that if relations normalize, there's an ongoing benefit for the Canadian economy for years to come.
So one of the biggest steps that we can take, I mean, it's springtime. There's all those little home projects you've been staring at all winter that the weather's finally good enough. You're going to be cleaning up the yards. You're going to need a rake. You're going to need a shovel. You're going to need all the things to get the garden ready. When you're running out to grab those things, we're saying choose Home Hardware.
We're saying
locally in Kelowna.
We're saying choose a Canadian retailer.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
there's lots of we're in central BC here. There's little lumber mills around little towns everywhere.
Yeah.
There's small independent hardware retailers. There are a lot of options, and those are the businesses that I want to be on this registry, but also manufacturers. Like there are some pretty cool things made in this country. There's a company in Quebec and a company in Winnipeg that are making air-to-water heat pumps that are at the forefront of technology right now. Arctic Heat Pumps out of Winnipeg. There's
air-to-water heat pumps.
Yeah.
Just taking the moisture out of the air.
Well, taking the heat out of the air and putting it through a
the water.
refrigerant cycle into glycol, and then it's a big topic that I could nerd out on for a while.
He's so smart, you guys. You have no idea.
But there are so many little niche manufacturers and suppliers as well. There's a place that I'm going to in the next couple of weeks for one of the first episodes of the YouTube show called Eberhardt's. It's they make custom veneered products in Edmonton. They'll make custom doors, custom plywood. My kitchen, I've got this beautiful long linear walnut cabinet, and I needed a sheet 10 foot by 4 foot of walnut, and I wanted it to be a really select veneer. Well, I contacted Ralph over at Eberhardt's, and they made me a custom sheet of plywood exactly to what I needed. And you go in there, he's got an entire art studio as part of his manufacturing shop, where he hosts local artists, and they do like woodworkers from across the country send stuff to be exhibited. He hosts community events. Like there are all of these businesses that exist around Canada that are doing wonderful things, not just for their families, but also for the community around them. And those are the type of people that we want to make sure that we are supporting, because a lot of businesses are going to get lost through this nonsense that's happening right now.
So the registry that you're creating, the site you're creating, is that kind of just meant to be a spotlight on these businesses, or what's kind of the end goal for what you're trying to create here?
So it's a catalog, essentially.
Okay.
So anybody who's looking to do a project, any type of construction project, whether it's a small home renovation done by a DIYer right up to a full development contract, should be able to visit this registry and search for the product category they're looking to supply for and find Canadian manufacturers in order to fulfill that product category.
Okay.
And then on the other side of it, it's just about promotion for these businesses and highlighting them. In the last couple of weeks, through my different social channels, I have been reached out to by literally thousands, tens of thousands of people have been leaving comments of support for Canada, and from all over the world, from European markets, from South American markets, from all over the States too. There are a lot of people in the States. I would say a majority of people in the States, I think that's actually factual. The majority of people in the States are not supporting this tariff nonsense. So there's a large market for export still in the United States.
So, okay, this is super cool. What I want to know, and we're going to take a quick break, but is how these businesses are ranked for being Canadian, because there's Canadian-owned businesses that bring in U.S. product, and then there's Canadian-owned businesses that manufacture their own stuff, but they bring in U.S. product to manufacture. So next, we're going to talk about how we can decipher how much of our Canadian dollars are going to stay here when we make our purchases in the construction industry. Stay tuned. Welcome back to The Real Build. I'm your host, Jamila, and unfortunately, Andre had to sail off into the sunset, but I still have a very special guest, Ben, here with me today.
Hello.
And Ben, this topic, it's so important, and I just want to thank you for putting your time and energy into this space, because I know you're a busy man. You run a few businesses. You're very talented at what you do. You have an incredible following on your social media channels for your carpentry work and what you're building, the creative projects you come up with. So I'm really excited that a mind like yours is diving into this task of creating a resource for Canadian-owned businesses, Canadian-made products, Canadian manufacturing, specifically for the construction industry. So for a contractor or developer, you can go to this resource, and
Or homeowners
doing renovations or projects. This is the website you can go to that will tell you how to keep those dollars in Canada with Canadian businesses.
Yeah, and I just want to make it clear as well that it's just a registry at this point. We are signing up businesses. I'm watching my phone light up time after time here as more and more people are starting to sign up. We're going to get these businesses on the registry before we actually launch the site. It's been a bit of a project to get this thing built. I've been doing it in my own free time, just after hours. That's how I've been trying to get this done. But going forward, I've got a web development company that's taking care of it. So they're
Lovely.
taking it on. What you're going to see now if you go to buildingcollective.ca is just something I made up on a website builder. It's got a form and it's got some contact information. It's got a few bare bones things so that these manufacturers and suppliers can get over there and get signed up and get pre-registered. We're going to launch the actual project before the end of the month here.
Okay.
So that we can have a fully interactive map and a fully interactive category list so that whatever people are looking for, they can get in there and find the products that they need for their project.
So the vision is that as a homeowner, a contractor, developer doing any type of construction project, I could go to the website. Can you say the website again?
It's buildingcollective.ca.
buildingcollective.ca, and there would be like a search bar, and I could search drywall or search.
Yeah, so it'll basically the setup that I have envisioned that they're working on right now. Like you get there right now, and it's just a form and it's some information about what I'm trying to build. There's actually also a funding contribution part of that as well, because ultimately I'm doing this out of my free time, but I can't be doing this out of my pockets forever. So we're going to do this set up as a nonprofit and try and keep all of these things to support these businesses as free as possible.
Okay.
It's going to have a small fee in order to be on the registry. Like
Okay.
the web developer suggested around $15. I'm hoping to keep it to that or less. But that's ultimately just to stop bots from being able to sign up and
Okay.
crash the website, and then also just to fund the hosting of it and all of the things that go into maintaining something like this, right? A few grand a year is all the budget that this is going to need in order to keep running.
Operating.
But to answer your question, what you're going to see when you get there, once we launch it later this month, will be an interactive map. So you can zoom in and out on the entire map of Canada and see all the suppliers. There will be drop-down menus on the side that allow you to select for your category or your subcategory, or to just search for whatever product you're looking for. You can search by either location or by on the map or by product category. That's the idea, and that's pretty much all it needs to be.
Yeah.
There will be some hot linking to YouTube videos that I'll make with some of these suppliers, but other than that, no, it just needs to be bare bones. It just needs to be a landing page.
Yes.
So that, like we've talked about, there are so many contractors and developers that are set in their ways, and I don't blame them for not wanting to change their systems. So if you're a homeowner and you're going to build a custom house, you have a lot of influence over your builder to get them to explore new Canadian products. Once they've seen them and seen the quality of the products that we make here, they just may not have been thinking about it, but then they've used it, and then they're more willing to use it going forward.
Yeah. And as a contractor, I can talk to that. You are holding a home warranty on a product, and you work with businesses that you've worked with before and products you've worked with before that you know are going to stand up, and or those businesses are going to warranty it. There's a trust agreement there between the history of working with those products and businesses. So it's hard to just switch to somebody new. But you are absolutely correct. If I have someone come to me and say it's a priority in my build, I want to use this contractor, then this supplier, then the discussion about risk can be made between the contractor and the homeowner, and they can both choose to go in that direction, and it gives the contractor a great opportunity to try out something new.
Well, and let me ask you this, like as a developer or as a contractor, how are you going to go about sourcing things? You're going to go with the things that you've done in the past, right? You've got an inertia with that, and that makes a lot of sense. But you also have to be thinking about your bottom line. And when we're looking at what's happening across the border right now, price uncertainty is massive. I don't want to be planning for a build where the supplies are going to show up on site in October, and I don't want to be sending procurement for that right now, because I don't know, unless I can purchase it and have it on site or have to store it, I don't know what the product price is going to be by October. So you're actually adding an extra level of certainty to your build cost if you can keep things within Canada. Now, there are raw materials that are going to get tariffed, and there's going to be some stuff, but ultimately, if you want price certainty, you just don't want to be interacting with tariffs at all.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you're right. Unless you can buy it right then and there and store it until it's needed, that's a risk that you take when moving into a build. So let's get back to the website. So right now, like, this is such an important cause. Like, what do you need? What help do you need to keep this going?
Right now, what I need is for people to be, first of all, sharing the content so that manufacturers and suppliers can see it and know where they have to go in order to register. That's the most important thing, is getting people registered so that we can have a robust registry. It's not going to work if we launch and there's 100 businesses on there. That's just not going to be enough. We need several hundred to several thousand Canadian businesses, manufacturers, suppliers. It could even be, it could be small scale and it could be large scale. But that's what we need right now, is to get people on there. And then for the individual, what you can do is go to buildingcollective.ca and you can sign up just for the mailing list. Like, even that, because then we can reach you when we launch this in about 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
We can reach you and go, okay, the interactive map is up. Go explore. Go check out all these Canadian companies. The other thing that can be done is to set up either a one-time or a recurring donation to help fund getting this done. You know, like these.
You do need some funds.
I do need some funds, and I'm doing it out of my pocket right now. And the first trip, I'm going to do some videos with places around Kelowna here, some suppliers around Kelowna. I'm going to go and do the Edmonton trip. I have to see my sister anyway, so may as well pair it up.
Yep.
And I'm gonna do this, but the more funding that we can get in there, the more work I can do, and the better the registry can be handled in order to support Canadian business. It's not going to be a profit thing for me ever. This is going to be completely non-profit. The only thing that I would be taking out of it is reimbursement for the cost that I'm putting in.
So Paul, owner at Home Hardware, this is a shout out. You got your shout outs earlier. You're getting your shout out right now. Let's make this happen. Okay, businesses. I'm a business in Kelowna. How do I know I'm Canadian made enough or Canadian enough? What's the qualifications? How are you doing this?
Still working on defining all of the categories, but the ultimate level will be 100% Canadian owned and Canadian manufactured out of Canadian materials. So there are going to be different levels. Now, to me, Canadian means citizen or permanent resident. You don't have to be a citizen. You don't have to have a passport. If you're here and you're working in this country
And living here. Buying your groceries here.
yeah,
Buying
paying
your
your
beer
taxes here,
Yeah.
yeah, you're a Canadian to all of the ways that it matters to be a Canadian, right?
Okay. Yeah, I agree.
There is already a declaration on the website. So when you're filling this out, you have to declare the ownership. And I'm going to be doing some myself, using some of my employees, and possibly crowdsourcing some of this or hiring somebody to do back checking on this. But that's the pinnacle level. The ultimate Maple Moose level is going to be that Canadian 100% owned and supplying from Canada, manufactured in Canada.
Amazing. We're going to keep talking about this, and we're going to also talk about some businesses that you may be sitting there thinking that you don't need to register, but it could help, like construction cleaning companies, Canadian owned, Canadian products, register on the site. Anyway, we'll talk more about this when we come back. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.
Welcome back to The Real Build. I'm your host, Jamila. My co-host, Andre, had to run off for a meeting, and I know he is missing the show and will be listening. But we do still have Ben here. Ben, thank you for coming.
Pleasure.
We have been talking about the hottest topic there is to talk about, which I know is a stress on a lot of families across Canada, and that is the tariffs that have come down now in Canada and the U.S. And the costs that is doing to businesses. And the biggest thing we can do as Canadians is to shop local, and buy Canadian products. One area that can be really tough to determine in is the construction industry. So Ben has taken it on himself to create an online resource where you can source a Canadian manufacturer product, Canadian-owned business in the construction industry for homeowners, contractors, developers that are building or renovating any type of project right across Canada. This is in its infancy. It's brand new. Ben, tell me, what is the website again?
It's buildingcollective.ca.
Buildingcollective.ca.
And Build Up Canada on YouTube.
Build Up Canada on YouTube, where you can hear Ben talk more about this topic and also interviewing different businesses that are Canadian owned, Canadian manufacturer, Canadian made. That is the dream combination right there that we talked about before the break. So there is different ways that you're going to be kind of categorizing these businesses for when people come to the website and can make their choices on how they want to keep their dollars in Canada. Let's talk a bit more about that, Ben.
Sure. The categorization or?
Yeah, like how are you going to define these different companies?
Yeah, so anything in Canada, we really like making jokes about ourselves, right? So I'm actually looking for crowdsourcing some help with some of the naming of these categories and make it kind of fun. Like I said in the last segment that the ultimate one is going to be the Golden Maple Moose. Well, that's going to be 100% Canadian owned and manufactured from products sourced within Canada.
Very cool.
Now, there will be descending categories from there, and all of the categories will be on our preferred list. Like, it's a preferred list. We're not listing places that don't meet any of the category requirements, right? But I mean, getting right down to, I'm even open to the possibility of having businesses on there that are partially Canadian owned. And, if there's ownership structure that exists in places where we have positive trading relationships with right now, like say you've got an Italian guy living in living in BC here, and he owns a business with his family, and they're still over in Italy. Well, we've got really good trade relationships with the European Union. And so that would be on the lower end of things, right? But there's still a Canadian business, a Canadian component, and it's a lot better than sending your money to one of these American corporations, one of these private equity firms that are just gobbling up all of the things in Canada and then exporting our dollars. So beyond that, there will be different levels, but there'll probably be 3 or 4 levels in there, and I just haven't fully worked all that out yet. I'm just trying to hit the ground running, get this registry up and so that we can get these businesses registered. And then thankfully, I actually have in my office space, I'm sharing my office space with Kelowna Web Design. And so I've got those guys at Kelowna Web Design on the case right now. They're going to start building out this resource for me because I have reached the limits of, I'm a carpenter by trade.
Yeah.
I kind of deal with things that I can fix with a hammer. That's generally what I like to do.
Now, I've known Ben for this last part of the year, actually, we've been working together. He's actually amazing energy advisor. He's been working with me on developing net zero ready homes, and he does have a few other businesses. He is a hardworking man who is very, very smart, who's taken on this task, and I'm thankful that you are someone who is taking on this task of creating a resource for us to find Canadian owned businesses and manufactured products. But if you want to help Ben make sure this continues to come to fruition and his vision is seen, he does need some funds. So if there are some Canadian businesses out there that love this idea that can put some funds in there, he does need that, but also register. If you go to his website, Ben, the website again?
Buildingcollective.ca.
Buildingcollective.ca, and you are a Canadian-owned business. Please register. They want to fill it up right across Canada. And if you are someone who wants to see what this is going to be all about when it launches in a few weeks, go and register to their mail service,
Yep,
right?
just the mailing list. That's
The mailing
all.
list.
That's very, very helpful if people can go over there and do that, or subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm going to be making announcements there. Now we went from 0 to I think around 2,500 subscribers on YouTube now in the course of a little over a week.
Wow.
But the first video I put up just describing the nuts and bolts of this, I think only got a few hundred views, right? So interaction with that YouTube channel is really important. 25% of the people who viewed the video liked it and watched the whole thing, but whatever, it's getting held down probably because it's a little boring. But the more people that we have involved and watching for this type of thing, the more eyeballs we can have on it means the more eyeballs we can have on these Canadian businesses. And I'll just continue making content on my social media channels to try and bring eyes over, because ultimately, if I can have my goal with this is to take as much money out of the American economy as I possibly can and put it into Canadian pocketbooks. That's all I care about with this. Like I said, it's going to be completely nonprofit. I'm not going to make money off this. It is a passion project because I love the building industry and I love this country.
If you want to help out, like if you're listening, you're like, I want to be a part of this. I want to help you out. How do we get a hold of you?
I'll just give my cell phone number on air here. No, you go to buildingcollective.ca. There is a contact form there.
Okay.
I'm going to try and filter some of this. I occasionally get far too much attention for a video online, and then the trolls come out in force. So I have to be a little bit protective. Yeah.
Also, your social media channel.
It's Build Up Canada on TikTok and YouTube.
Okay.
And then it's Look What We Built on Instagram.
Okay. So find Ben, get in touch, help him make this happen. Now, sometimes it's just impossible to find completely Canadian. And you had mentioned before Europe. We have great trade partner agreements from Europe. So if you can't do it, yes, get it from Italy, import that product. What are other countries that you could feel comfortable with if you're going to put your money into something and it's not from Canada?
So we have really great trade relationships with lots of places around the world, including places in the Commonwealth, places in Africa, places in the Middle East, even in Europe, Asia. We have our government over the years, through different parties, different control, has worked hard to bring these free trade agreements with different nations. all of them are abiding by them. So if we have a trade agreement in place with a nation and they are honoring it, then to me, that is good. Now, we can talk about different things like human rights abuses and stuff, but that's a far too large topic for this.
Yeah, and we only have a minute left.
We have wonderful trade relationships with the European Union. I love seeing stuff come over from Europe. You know, they manufacture some really, really high-end stuff there.
Yes.
Ultimately, we're going to focus on Canadian-owned businesses, but we will have a section of the registry available for, if there's a category on the registry and we cannot find a Canadian business, I don't think that's going to happen, but if there is that section open, then yeah, we're going to be looking at the places where you have good trade relationships with.
Okay, amazing. I thank you for taking this task on, Ben. Like this
Hey,
is
thank you for having me on to talk about it.
We're going to have you back once you've launched the site so we can talk about it more. And I think we will definitely be reminding our listeners to talk to their Canadian-owned businesses and getting onto the website and registering. Again, one more time, can you say the website?
Buildingcollective.ca.
Buildingcollective.ca. We're going to change the construction industry and put those dollars in Canadian families' pockets. Thanks so much for listening today. And we will have you back again, Ben. Thank you.
Thank you very much.